we're back from 2020 since the last time we've done it, so we've taken a little bit of a break, and this time we're coming at it with a completely new approach, new style, and a complete new game plan. The idea for this time around is a 10-part series talking to some of the best and brightest Irish tech startups, and then sprinkling it with some of the nonsense that myself, Martin, Alex, and Dean will be talking about, from things like Samsung Unpacked to the metaverse and everything in between. So let's jump straight in. And with me today, I have James Flynn, the CEO of Coso.ai. Say hi to everybody, James.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for having me, John, as well. Appreciate it.
No.
Very happy to be the first guest in this rendition.
Look, someone has to start, and I think we were saying off air, like, myself and yourself connected, Jesus, maybe this time last year when your brand was still Connect More.
Yeah, exactly. Just when we were doing market research and figuring out whether we'd pivot into what we're doing now. So, yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose the obvious question to start with is, what the hell is Coso.ai? What do you do? Why do you do it? And how does it work? Because I am on the waiting list and I can't wait to get in and see what it actually does.
Well, after the podcast, we might let you in. Basically, with Coso, essentially what we do is we use multimedia generative AI to create social media content automatically for companies, fundamentally. How that actually works is we look at your website, your brand guidelines, if you have those. Most people we work with actually don't have brand guidelines, but like if they do, it's great. And we look at your historical marketing materials. So we build up a little profile of how you communicate. And then on the other side, we look at different data sources for social media content. So kind of similar to how a social media marketer actually works. We look at news that's relevant for your audience that you can kind of reshare. We look at what's trending for similar companies. And then we also analyze your website we monitor your website for updates. So like new blogs you put up, new products and services you put up on your website. And then the fourth thing is we look at like evergreen content. So people who listen to the podcast, depending on the exact demographic, evergreen content is basically content that you can always post. So it's not like time specific. So top tips for X, fill in the X for a different type of business. You can pretty much post that 365 days a year and get solid engagement if it's actually kind of meaningful content, meaningful tips. So we have this profile how you communicate. We have all these different data sources for content, and that's when the generative AI comes in. So we basically have an algorithm that picks from all this stuff, feeds it into generative AI systems, and then we create text and image content. Right now, we'll do videos in a few months. So for our users, 9 a.m. on a Monday morning, you get a notification that we've created your content for the week. You just approve the content, and then it's automatically published at optimal times throughout the week across the relevant platforms.
That's really cool. So, question on that. I mean, you were obviously saying it'll look at our social channels. So let's take Goose as an example, because we are notoriously all over the place when it comes to social media. When it comes to TikTok, Martin is the face, the brand. He's the big man, and he does all the TikToks. Really fun short form type content. Actually, anybody who is watching this, definitely go and check out Martin Meany on TikTok, Martin Meany Goosed. It's some really, really cool content. But then if you were to look at our LinkedIn, we don't really post that frequently, because I guess we're very much trying to, the best way I can describe it is Goosed is trying to make tech accessible to people. So our voice, our tone is like, how would I explain this to my mom? Yeah. So how would your platform go and say, right, this is how you do TikTok, this is how you do LinkedIn, this is how you do Twitter? Does it specify, or is it very much one channel approach or one voice approach? Like, what is the move on that?
Yeah. So right now what we do for our customers is we optimize for LinkedIn itself, and then we optimize for all the other platforms as one cluster, basically.
Okay.
So typically people care about Facebook or Instagram. There's they have a bigger following on there's very few brands that have a big following on Facebook and Instagram. Until you get to like very, very big brands, it's kind of different demographics.
Yeah.
So, and then like we allow you to post to Twitter, but we don't actually analyze Twitter data or X data because it became prohibitively expensive about 12 months ago.
Yeah.
So,
wonder why.
Yeah, I don't know. Something might have happened. We have to look into it. Yeah, we allow you to schedule to X off our platform as well. We don't necessarily optimize on the data specifically for X. So yeah, and then we just differentiate. We like localize the post. So obviously there's a lot of post characteristics that make a post more receptive on Instagram versus LinkedIn. Like post length, typically longer on LinkedIn. slightly more in-depth kind of mini blog posts do quite well on LinkedIn. Whereas Instagram is a bit more short and snappy, and maybe that data, instead of being in the text, is actually in like a carousel form when it goes to Instagram. Even though carousels on LinkedIn are also doing pretty well these days.
Yeah.
So like we look at factors like that, like hashtags that are relevant for the content that are kind of trending, and topics that you kind of talk about. That, like, obviously the topics we kind of at the moment analyze topics as like one large data set, platform agnostic, but as time goes on we'll kind of get better at isolating those specific platforms.
Yeah, that's really cool. I suppose that actually kind of leads me on to another question. It's like, I suppose, you know, I've obviously worked in the social media sphere as well for, I'm not going to say numbers because it's showing my age. But anyway, it's very much one of those things that, you know, when I'm writing or whatever, the last thing you want your content to seem is like robotic or, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, inauthentic. You know, social media by its nature, you're looking for that authenticity. Yeah. And I think some people might have that, you know, that barrier, that blocker of allowing an AI to write your content. Like, what's your approach on that? As you said, it's very much you analyze the channels, and I assume that's how it matches the tone, or, you know, explain away.
Yeah, no. So that's like something that we work like really, really hard to do. So like, a lot of people, particularly like kind of digital natives, like social media people, digital marketers, have used ChatGPT at this point to create content. And typically with ChatGPT, it's either like academic, no personality, which is great for like blog posts and stuff, or else it's like this mad, over the top American. It's like a caricature of an American like used car salesman. Those are the two personalities. So like what we spent like loads of time over the last year doing is getting really good at doing something in the middle ground. So that's why we read it like your website content, your brand guidelines, your historical marketing materials. So the content that we produce is actually kind of on correct tone of voice, on brand, and kind of hits that messaging. So we see at the moment, like we're quite early stages in terms of running paid pilots. We're hoping to like launch properly over the next couple months. So we have a waiting list. But at the moment, about 75% of the content we produce is just accepted with no edits by our customers.
Okay.
Which is really good threshold, because if they're using ChatGPT to try to do that, you know, they have the whole like create a post about X, and it's like, oh well, now make it less salesy, or make it longer, or make it shorter. So like we basically automate all that kind of back and forth. Like we optimize the prompts, and then because we have our own kind of proprietary data set at the back end that's feeding into the generative AI system, we can create like optimized content that's quite on brand. So our ultimate goal is like when someone signs up for the app, the 90 seconds of signing up, without having to type anything or make any meaningful decision, you have a post that you can post on your Instagram or your Facebook or your LinkedIn.
That's really cool. Yeah. No, I like that, because I suppose, like, I know, like, ChatGPT, I find is very much, you know, that whole like Professor Farnsworth meme. It's like, good news, everyone. It's like, it's not. Calm down. Bring the tone down at 50%, please. And let's make it actually sound like a person wrote it. Yeah. I think that's the really cool thing about, you know, something like this. It's like, and especially for people who work in like marketing, being able to kind of get that time back there where you can actually, like, you know, do things like analyze your actual audiences, you know, maybe, you know, go looking at generating other content, whether that's, you know, like your long form blogs, etc., being able to, you know, as you said, if you have a blog that's on your page, you're going to get posts based on the content that you're generating on your site. So that's really cool. I suppose the thing for like a customer, consumer, so like me and you, we're going to be writing posts, we're going to be throwing them up on Instagram, so, or whatever social media channel. So like the person, like the end user who's reading the posts, they're never going to know that this was written by an AI. Yeah. That's like this is perfect. I love this kind of stuff, because it's like, how can I get more time back in my day to go do other things? And anybody in the marketing sphere should be really looking at something like this. And like, to be fair to you, you've come an awful long way since I think we started talking like last year. I mean, obviously you had the rebrand, and, you know, we were kind of talking before this about, you know, where you were to where you are now. So if you want to explain how the last year has gone, and just, you know, tell that story, because it's really cool.
No, thanks. So yeah, no, we've worked on the software for like just over 3 years, like basically full time for all that time, more or less. There was like, we never worked in marketing before. We wanted to build a product that was going to like be larger than like Sprout Social and Hootsuite, and more usage than like HubSpot social media scheduler. But but we never worked as social media marketers or never worked in marketing before, so it was an ambitious goal. So there was a year there of just figuring out like how the industry worked. Well, 2 years to be fair, figuring out how the industry worked. And then during that time, we built an initial product that was, like you alluded to earlier, called Connect More, and that was trying to solve the content problem for social media. But if you took away the AI piece, like how would you solve it? You'd get data and then give people like dashboards, so like they could see the trending topics or the trending hashtags and all that stuff. We couldn't really find a scalable market for that product. In the meantime, like what we always wanted to do was the AI product, but essentially the AI wasn't in a place where we could, find product market fit with that. We had some of our own AI that we kind of built over a couple of years. That was kind of like a really, really terrible version of the stuff we're doing now using like some open source AI stuff. But basically the end of 2022, which feels like last year, but it's 2 years ago now.
No, yeah.
That's probably when we would have first talked, I think, and we were basically figuring out like, cool, okay, that didn't work. If we build the AI thing, will there be a market for it? And like we talked about 40 marketers in like November, December, that time, like just over a year ago, and like kind of universally, I think 39 out of 41 people were like, yeah, I definitely use it, and like 32 out of 39 were like, I'd pay you for it if it was available tomorrow. So that was really good positive indicators. Then we did some more research, like kind of more sort of like interviews, like surveys and stuff. Sent a survey out to about 400 different marketers. Got another 40 or 50 responses from that. It's actually a pretty good response rate, about 10%. Yeah. And that confirmed that as well from another segment of people. So we're like, all right, cool. We're pretty sure there's a market here. We've talked to like a lot of marketers. This should work if we build it. So we were like, grand. So we spent all of last year basically building out that product. And we've launched paid pilots now the last couple months. And people seem to the feedback's been really positive. Almost across the board, which is really good. We haven't had any churn yet. We'll probably end up, I think now kind of we've just gone over 10 paid pilots. So we've got 12. We're hoping to have like 14 to 15 by the end of the week. And then we're targeting kind of 20 by the end of the month. But yeah, those at that kind of scale, you kind of start to get one or two to churn, which is grand because we're trying to lock down our ideal customer profile. So we kind of expect half of those people to churn because we've gone so, let's basically figure out what our ICP looks like at the moment. And we're seeing some trends emerge, which is super, super cool. Oh, even already. But we obviously need to get some sort of scale, like up towards 50 or 100 customers before we can say, okay, this is our ideal customer profile.
Yeah, of course.
That's what we're figuring out at the moment. But yeah, and we're like raising an investment round at the moment, kicking that off in the next couple of weeks. So that'll be interesting as well. And then hopefully we can kind of start scaling up this year is the plan, to kind of scale up to be I don't know the best way to phrase it, but a feasible business. And beyond, hopefully. We're looking at raising like a very large investment round, hopefully in about 2 years. So we need to start kind of scaling up our revenue so we can get there. But yeah.
Yeah, I think like a question I'd like to ask on that is like, I suppose when you hear a lot of these companies, the assumption is Silicon Valley, San Francisco, it's America. Like being an Irish company and going through the process, in Ireland, like what has been the map? Like, how did you get started? Where did you go for help? What does this whole process look like, I guess? Because I think 90% of people, and definitely anybody who would be watching this, people have ideas and then they go, no, sure, unless you're like the Collison brothers and Stripe having a hope. There's a way to start. So how does that look, and how did you get from, man with laptop to I'm looking at a feasible business here?
Yeah. So I guess, and it sounds kind of stupid, the best way is just to kind of start.
Yeah.
It's very, you kind of get analysis paralysis. So the term that my old boss used to use like every day. Where you're like, I have no idea what to do, so you never start. But just doing something is the way to start. So for me, a couple of years ago, or like 3 to 4 years ago now at this stage, I was working for Salesforce at the time as an engineer, like in Salesforce, and I had, I was like, okay, cool, I want to pursue Coso like full time. A friend of a friend had a startup company that he'd been working on, so I got his number off my friend and rang him and was like, where do I start? So he directed me to the New Frontiers program, which is like an entrepreneurship program that Enterprise Ireland run.
Okay.
So they run it basically out of most of the colleges around the country. And it's like 6 months. They give you like $2,500 a month to work on your business if you get it. Like, so there might be 50 or 100 people apply, and then they've got like 12 places to the program, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it got into that. So that was like a soft landing coming out of employment into effectively just still employment.
Yeah.
But I got to work on the business full time for 6 months. Moved back home during that time, and then worked from there. So that's kind of how I got started. And then like there's a lot of sports now. So like New Frontiers is solid. The income is really nice, especially if you're coming out of a job like that paid you and all that. In terms of like the program content, there's something here called the NDRC, which is like the National Startup Accelerator, quote unquote. And so it's also government funded, but it comes from like a different like stream of government funding. That's run by some of the startup co-working spaces around the country. And they use basically to set the curriculum for that, they use what they call like entrepreneurs in residence and like other startup founders. So a lot of the content that you can do that, so they've got like a pre-accelerator that's like unfunded and it's like 6 weeks or 12 weeks or something, which we did a couple of years ago, which is really good content. And then they also have an accelerator when you're at a slightly later stage. But basically, essentially, embedding yourself in like a co-working space. There's also this, they run these things like First Fridays for startups, which are on the first Friday of every month at a different co-working hub around the country, where it's just like startup focused content. You can get introduction to the ecosystem. And the founders weekends, which are like weekend long hackathons that run every month or two, where you can just go in and try and find like co-founders for your startups, try and build something over the weekend. That's good. And then also the BICs, so like business innovation centers around the country. So like Cork BIC, I think Dublin BIC rebranded recently to Further. But yeah, there's lots of, if you Google Startup Supports Ireland and just go from there, basically, there's actually like, we're really, really good as a country for like ideation stage startup supports.
Yeah.
Where compared to something like Silicon Valley, where it gets a bit tougher in Ireland, is going, okay, I have an idea, and maybe I have a potential market. I've got like sort of super early, like a minimum viable product, like something that vaguely. So like when you're in New Frontiers for 6 months, or you're in the NDRC pre-accelerator program and like doing that sort of stuff, you can kind of get to the point where you have like a super, super basic version of your product that you can at least show to potential customers to get feedback on it. But going from, and this applies mostly to like tech startups I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Going from there to like having $100,000 in revenue, most time for a lot of startups requires a big chunk of investment, and it can be tough in Ireland compared to America to kind of get the investment that you need to kind of get to that point. After that point, again, it becomes reasonable again. But what's called like pre-seed investment in Ireland is like, it's getting a lot better, but compared to America, like America, like there is cases of it happening in Ireland as well, 100%. But it's a lot more common in the States to rock in with like basically like a pitch deck, so like a slide deck, and some pedigree, like you worked at a good company and maybe, a good team plus a pitch deck, and you can get like funded for an idea to the tune of like $1 or $2 million. Like obviously it's still really difficult, but happens a lot more often in the States than Ireland. And Ireland typically needs to prove a bit more traction and be a bit more further along to kind of raise that sort of money.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, like the next question I was going to ask is like, what would be your advice to someone who's looking to start a company in Ireland? I think you kind of answered it, was just get up and do something and get started.
Yeah, like I think as well, like the counter to that as well is like do something and get started. If you're, obviously everyone has different lives and different priorities and like different, workloads that they can facilitate. But like most of the founders that I would know that are on the path to success are working, 50, 60 hours a week, like almost every week.
Yeah, who needs sleep, right?
What's that?
Yeah, who needs sleep, right?
Who needs sleep? But to that vein, like I think a mistake I made, to be honest, is probably quitting my job too early, because it's taken us a couple of years, like learn about the market and build, iterate the product and all this stuff to kind of get to the point where now it looks like we'll be hopefully be a pretty successful business. Like there's a lot of like proof points that kind of validate that. but it's taken us a while to get here, and it's been kind of a struggle in the meantime in terms of having to pick up jobs on the side to fund ourselves. So I still work part-time as an IT director at the moment, and hopefully I'll be able to hand in my notice there once we kind of raise our investment round or grow our revenue in the meantime. But I wouldn't necessarily have had to do that if I just waited an extra 6 to 12 months before quitting my well-paid tech job.
Yeah, I fully get that because Jesus, this is now Goosed is now an 8-year side hustle. 9 years. Nearly 9 years, but one of these days this will be the full time.
But because obviously it's nice to be able to quit your job and focus on your idea full time, and that for some people that is viable, and some people can do that and they get investment or they have a lot of savings themselves. We did have a lot of savings. We basically used, myself and my co-founder used our mortgage deposits to fund the first couple of years of the company.
Risk.
Yeah, which was it is we're in our 20s, so it's viable, I suppose, is probably the word. But if you're not willing to kind of work on your startup evenings and weekends, a few hours a week while you are full-time employed, then there's a good chance that you might not be suited for the actual startup path, if that makes sense, because you're going to be working those combined hours anyway once you're full-time in your startup. Not necessarily, there is obviously exceptions to the rule, but most people that I know would work those hours.
No, I'll tell you a little story. So essentially my family there, my sister, she does jewelry. Very much you'd go home and she'd still be there on the book or on the laptop, or she's probably your age, mid-20s, and I'd say she's working 60-70 hours a week. But people would just assume, oh, it's shiny stuff, it's easy. It's not. There's catalogs to be made, there's actual products to be made, there's you have to have that drive to get up and do something. It's one thing having an idea, and then it's another thing seeing it through, let's say.
Yeah, no, 100%. And also, I guess the counter that, not to dissuade people and sound too negative about it, is it's incredibly fulfilling, and you would have got this as well, John, as you're growing the business. It's making the first sale, or making the first XYZ, the first time the whatever value you're trying to deliver to a customer, this is the thing, we can sell this. And first time you had a sale, even when you get to a little milestone like 5 sales or 10 sales, just genuinely I could work Monday to Friday, I could do 60 hours in those 5 days, and on Friday when I leave the office, I'm buzzing. Right,
done, ready, let's go.
I don't even feel obviously by the time I get home, I just want to go to bed, but on the way home from the office, I'd literally be this is a class week. I'm so excited to come back in on Monday, or work on this on Sunday or whatever. And that's something that it's very rare to get that if you're working for a company that you don't have ownership in.
Yeah, it's that self motivation. It's I'm doing this for me. I mean, I remember, it was a few years ago, myself and Martin, we met up in Dublin. We had an unofficial annual meetup. So Goose, there's 4 of us, and we're dotted around the country. We even had Dean, who was down in Australia for a couple of years, and we still figured it all out, which was really cool. But there was a day myself and Martin met up in Dublin. Went to one of the craft beer places. I wouldn't know the names of any of them, to be honest. I was just ooh, booze. But the day we were able to sit there, pay for the lunch and the pint on the official Goose card, it was oh my God, we're actually doing something here. This is nice.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's class. Yeah, we did a similar kind of thing. Initially, we were counting our revenue with the old product in pints of Beamish.
There we go.
So we were we hit 20 pints of Beamish this month. We hit 40 pints of Beamish this month.
Please tell me you had a whiteboard where you put little stickers or something up to that.
Virtual whiteboard.
There we go. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's it's class. I wouldn't. I find it if this, once and caveating all this, it looks like we are on a good trajectory, and we will have a good business. And I believe that, and to be honest, I think we just need to execute this year, and that will we've proved kind of in the very early stage of this product, we've kind of proved most of what we need to prove, it will be a viable product. Now we're just trying to optimize and start scaling. But I always said, even when we were in the troughs of trying to figure out will we continue this, or what's if you go back 18 months, like I'd find it very hard to go back working for like a big company. The only exception would be if I was so burnt out when the startup failed that like I needed like 6 or 12 months to just like chill out and work like 35, 40 hours a week and just kind of like reevaluate my life.
Yeah, you're hooked now, aren't you?
Yeah, like it's absolute. Like we're all addicts at the end of the day.
So tell me, like, I know you kind of said it, like there, like you look to be on a good trajectory. Like, it's, to be fair, it's one of the brands I've been keeping an eye on over the last few months because, as I said, I'm on the waiting list and I'm eagerly waiting. But essentially, like this trajectory, what does that look like over the next 12 months? Like, what's the plans? What's the goals? What's the moves? What are we trying to? If we were to catch up this time next year, where do we want to be?
12 months time, ideally we'd be above 50k MRR, like monthly recurring revenue.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have a team of about 9 people, or about to be 9 people, and we'd be that revenue. We'd have a few grand of that from Ireland per month. We'd have maybe 10, 20 grand from the UK, and then we'd have about 25 grand from North America. That's the rough plan. We'll see how the UK plays out. Like it's a big enough market that we might be able to get to that level kind of without expanding to North America. But yeah, something along those lines. That's the plan. So we're
along those lines.
Yeah, so we were on like basically no revenue in October. In November we went to like 600. In December we went to like 1100. Currently we're at 1500, and we should hopefully be on 2k by the end of the week, and we're targeting 3k by the end of the month, and then 5k by the end of next month is the goal.
Nice.
And by then we have the product like mostly automated, but there's a tiny bit of manual steps still in the product while we're still finishing off like the initial build.
Sure.
So hopefully by the end of next month we'll have a good idea around our ideal customer profile, and the product will be fully automated, and then we can we'll also hopefully have some of the investment money in the bank by like March, April, and then we can actually start scaling a bit more, a bit quicker, which will be like super fun. Yeah.
Cool. Right. So I think I'm gonna have some fun questions to ask, because let's be fair, the last 12 months in the social media landscape has been, let's put it nicely, chaotic.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like, I suppose everything changed the day Elon Musk got involved, and the artist formerly known as Twitter. Like, is it a tweet? Is it an X? What is it now? Like, essentially, like, where do you see social media going? I guess is kind of an interesting question, because I've been looking at platforms like T2, which, bless their soul, they lasted 6 months and went up in smoke. We've had Mastodon, we have Blue Sky, Jack Dorsey's, revamp, and now we have Threads, which after some GDPR stuff seems that we're now available and operational in Ireland. So it's like, I guess the Twitter wars, where do we see this coming? Where do we see it going?
Yeah. Honestly, it's the thing, like, Twitter is probably here to stay in some form. Like, it would be very, very Elon Musk just, turn around and be like, right, we're shutting it down.
Yeah.
But I see there's so much value there in terms of like the use, even if it's not worth what like he purchased it for at the time. Like it's now worth a quarter or a fifth or something of what he purchased it for, something like that. But that's probably there to say. Meta is really interesting. Like I think Meta is going to do a big comeback in the next couple of years. Like I'm actually very long on the metaverse, especially with like the glass, the Ray-Ban Facebook glass. Like that's the whole thing with like Oculus and stuff like that is it's and the Snapchat glasses, if you remember them back in the day, they were a brief
those vile things.
My friend spent 100 quid on them. It was a nice novelty for a week. But like those sort of things are just so weird and funky looking that like people aren't going to wear them in public and stuff. But or even like at home, like stuff's very clunky. It's not very user friendly. But when you get to the point where like it's very seamless user experience, when going into like the VR metaverse stuff is as seamless as like turning on the TV. In terms of like you're not like, oh, this is uncomfortable to be watching the TV. Like that's what we're gonna get to. And I think that's when it really takes off. And then you've got the augmented reality stuff as well. When you have glasses that look like mine and yours, but in reality they're like augmented reality, like metaverse or metaverse adjacent stuff. Like that's all really, really cool. And that's the future of like in real life content.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And if you think about it, the cornerstone of social media is user sharing, like in real life content. So I'm not sure exactly how that plays out, that relationship, but that would make a lot of sense to me, especially with Facebook's putting so much money on, putting so much into metaverse, and then obviously their core platform being Facebook and Instagram.
Do you know what? It gives me a wonderful segue because my mate Brenny, who's actually going to be doing one of the next few podcasts, and his company is Crypto Jerseys. So he basically designs football jerseys for clubs, but you also basically get the jersey in the metaverse for your character and stuff like that. So he's very, like, the chat we're going to be having is very much like NFTs, crypto, metaverse, all that kind of side of things. So that's one to keep an eye on. I've known Brenny years. I still don't know his surname. He's like Cher or Kaka to me. It's just one of those characters. But that's going to be really cool. And I suppose for people who don't really understand what augmented reality is, I guess the best way to describe it is Snapchat filters, the kind of, or the Tony Stark helmet overlays, or all that kind of stuff. Or you've probably seen it in Black Mirror in that episode with the eyeball and being able to rewind, go forward, and all that. So social media is going to get to a really weird place, but it's weird in a good way. That I think you're going to start seeing the integration of other technologies, because you do have, as you said, Meta, who tried the virtual office a few years ago, which, God bless it, flatlined horribly. But I think that was probably because of COVID, trying to run before you could walk. But merge all that with this new remote work culture, and I think you're going to be onto something really, really interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Just to be clear, though, I don't think there's any major differences. Like this year, I'd say it's very static, relatively.
Yeah, it's going to take.
It takes a couple of years. So, like, once the devices that enable it, that stuff go mainstream, then like they build in features, but they're big companies, so it takes them like a year or two to build features that are actually good.
Yeah.
Typically, although Threads, I think, was quite a fast build for Facebook, but
well, that's because it's a copy and paste of the other one, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and they're using I don't know how much they took from, because I think Threads might be open source and stuff. But there's obviously Mastodon that it like connects in with. So I don't know how much of it is a skin versus their own build. I haven't looked into that. They're working on a Threads API though, which is cool.
Okay.
So that's nice, which signals that the Facebook related APIs aren't going away anytime soon.
Oh God. Hooray for small victories.
Yeah. The other thing is we're going to see everyone doing everything. All the big tech companies are doing an everything app.
Yeah.
They're all trying to capture that market. Like what's the one over in China? WeChat.
WeChat, yeah.
Social media plus payments plus everything else. That's the way. Like, I mean, I think Elon Musk is fairly open with the fact that's what he wants to transform Twitter into. And then Mr. Beast uploaded that full-length video to Twitter this week to experiment.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And then they're going to introduce like payments or whatever, and they're going to try and make that an everything app. And it like makes sense that Facebook would do the same.
Yeah. I think that's where Instagram comes into play for the Meta ecosystem. That platform has been very much, how do I say this nicely, theft of other platforms. The stories are taken from Snapchat, the reels are taken from TikTok. The algorithm changes have essentially, gone in tandem with like the Twitter side, where it's not necessarily the most recent, it's the most relevant. And essentially Instagram is kind of the everything app, because you've also got shopping now, which is available in some countries. I think they've rolled out payments, maybe stateside or New Zealand. I can't remember where I saw that, but there is this idea of being able to shop natively through Instagram. So again, goes to this idea that these platforms are going to become everything platforms, where you can, not just read content, you can shop, you'll be able to do everything. And it's definitely fascinating, because I think the TikTok stuff, obviously last year, over the last couple of years, where people were Americans, saying Chinese app, searching your data, all that kind of screening, scanning, etc., etc. I don't think this, look, at the end of the day, social media is free, and when the companies are as rich as they are, the long and short of it is they're advertising platforms that we get to use for free, and that's the give and take that we have to accept. But I guess the more user generated it gets, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the where the AI stuff comes in as well, is like what's like in 12-ish months, give or take 12 months, you'll be able to. So maybe something comes out next week that enables it. But definitely in the next couple of years, you'll be able to essentially create a video product, user generated content that's like fully AI generated, that has like the product exactly as it exists, like 3D representation of the product, and like an AI generated like avatar, and it's going to be called like Luke O'Shea, and he's going to talk. He's from Mayo, and he's going to be talking about how the new like Nike training gear is class.
Okay. Yeah.
And the whole thing is going to be AI.
Yeah.
Then like the next step beyond that, when that happens, it goes to like change of trust, basically. I think so. Like you have like influencers, influencers are going to continue to get bigger. There is like obviously trust issues with influencers and all that, but then you have basically, John got a recommendation from Luke about this type of whatever, this training gear. Yeah. And now when my friend Ashley comes to me, I'm going to say, oh, well, John told me about this. So I assume that's good because Luke's a real person. And that's you've got this kind of community-based chain of trust things. And that's also why because Facebook is the best. Facebook's a community company. Yeah. As much as they're a tech company. And we're even seeing that with like Facebook groups being the main product on Facebook now in a lot of ways. And Threads being is kind of like a community. Obviously, it's for you page and all that, but they're and even the metaverse. Even the metaverse stuff, like even if you look at the difference between Apple and Meta in terms of their new augmented reality or VR headsets. So like the Apple one is like, what's Apple great at? Like making like super, like premium products that are amazing to use for you. So that's why they're pricing it like $2,500 or whatever. Yeah. What's Facebook good at? Facebook's amazing at building communities and doing community-focused things. So that's why their pricing there is at like $400, whatever, which is still obviously expensive for now. But or is it $800? Whatever, it's sub 1,000.
But still expensive enough, yeah.
And all the Apple apps in that demonstration were things like cool experiences for you, like single player, basically. And all the Facebook things in that demo, or most of them, were multiplayer experiences. Yeah. Because it's all community focused. So then if long-term, that chain of trust and community is how digital marketing basically goes, because like SEO dies to your AI, social media, we'll see how that progresses. Pay-per-click as well. There's a load of companies coming out now with like hyper-optimized AI pay-per-click ads. So that we'll see how that progresses as well. But like community is something that's going to be, I think, more and more important as time goes on.
Yeah, that's not terrifying. Actually, it really, again, brings me on to like the last major question I actually wanted to ask, because people are going to hear Luke O'Shea, the AI salesman, and go, oh, fuck all of that. Like that's Skynet shit. Like I don't want any part of this. Like with the AI argument now, there's two very obvious arguments. You have one side saying AI is going to be the thing that kills us all. Have you watched Terminator seriously? And then the other side is going to be, and that side is very much the, it took our jobs and that jobs are going to change. And then the other side is that AI is essentially a tool for us to, improve our ability to work, improve what we can do and how we do it. I have an idea of which route you're going to answer. So what side of the coin do you sit on and why?
I think there's a couple of like what's the thing, like history doesn't repeat but it rhymes. Like 100 years ago there was loads of people who were really good at riding horses, and then the car came along and it was like, all right, well, you learn to drive a car. And there's people that lost jobs based on that. There's also people who had to transition from basically taking care of horses to being like car mechanics, or whether or not that was direct transition or like other people came into those jobs. Essentially, like the role kind of changed. It didn't go away. Like the net amount of jobs didn't go away, but it evolved and it changed. Yeah. And then obviously it is kind of tragic in a way that like, well, it is tragic that like some people kind of get lost in that mix. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, like that happens like repeatedly throughout history. You look at like computers versus secretaries in the 60s or the 70s. You look at the internet versus like people who are running posts between offices and stuff like email. Like that's just it's just like reality. There's pros and cons to it. Yeah. So like it is kind of tragic, and it will get rid of a lot of jobs, but then there's also going to be new jobs on the back of that emerge, I think.
Yeah, like I think it's not going to, like, personally, I don't think the marketing sphere is going to be hampered by AI. I think it's going to be helped, because as good as AI will be, it'll never have that I guess what you'd call the spark of insanity, that bit of creative touch. I don't know if you saw, for anybody who hasn't seen this, look up the Burger King AI ads. They are possibly the worst things you'll ever see in your entire life. And if anybody's like, "Oh, AI is going to take my job," just have a quick look at them, and you'll go, I'm safe. I'm safe for the foreseeable future. But it is, no, like, I think AI is one of those ones where maybe it's a lack of understanding of what it is exactly. I think people go, well, it's the algorithm, it's the internet, it's going to take us over.
Yeah. I think as well, we're kind of reaching, like, and I don't, it's just intuition rather than, but there's this concept of like, it's called like the Pareto principle.
Mm-hmm.
So generally in like 20% of the time, 80% of progress gets done. And then the last 20% takes 80% of the time. But it applies to like lots of things. But I think we're kind of, in terms of generative AI specifically, I think we're kind of reaching that point where we've had a load of advancement in really rapid time. And now, particularly after like the GPT-5 equivalent stuff comes out this year, I think it's going to be a slower. I could be wrong. Maybe we're at the bottom of the curve and it's going to get even faster. But I think from being in the space for the last few years that we're going to see some sort of a reduction in kind of growth and advancement as quickly, just because we're running out of like low hanging fruit use cases, and now people need to solve like the harder problems.
Yeah. I actually fully agree with that, because like the market has definitely like been, like, even in the last 12 months, like with ChatGPT, how relevant that's become the last year. You have Google Bard, you have, Jesus, like, name it. There must be 40, 50, and anytime you even go on Instagram now, you're seeing like AI generated imagery. You've even seen examples where people have been able to like essentially take a musician and create a song based on them. I think all that as you said, that low hanging fruit stuff is done, and it's now I suppose it's the next layer stuff. It's where that's where the likes of medical infrastructural, all the kind of stuff that I guess me and you won't see day to day, or anybody will see day to day. That's the kind of the next phase.
Lots of stuff. That's anyway. By the way, when we say AI here, I guess we're talking about like LLMs and like ChatGPT and that sort of thing, as opposed to like, so like there is other AI systems that deal in absolutes a bit more. But like the ChatGPTs of this world are approximators, right? So they're really good at dealing with subjective things, but they're really poor at dealing with objective things.
Yes.
And there's a whole genre of startups that are spinning up at the moment to help them get better at doing objective things, like validating outputs, like this stuff where you can run, if you want to create something using ChatGPT, you can run it 100 times and then take maybe 54 of the 100 times it has this answer, so that's probably the answer. And all this cool stuff. But that's kind of getting like generative AI systems to do like objective truths as opposed to subjective truths is going to be like, it's quite a difficult task. If we get a social media post wrong, like, obviously it's, we're not happy, our customers are not happy. But if you're using something for like, medical imaging or like disease diagnosis, it's like, oh, you get someone's died now.
Yeah, like there's a big difference between, oh, my Instagram post had a misspelled word versus you've just diagnosed someone with the wrong thing. And it's not such a good point. Like, I'm really interested to see where this goes over the next 12 months, because like the growth in, especially like AI was the one. Do you remember 18 months ago it was crypto? Like 2022 was the year of the crypto. 2023 was the year of the AI. I don't think that's going to change this year.
No,
I don't be wrong, but I don't think so.
I think 2022 was the year of the like chatbot, and 2023, sorry, is the year of chatbot. 2024 is the year of like the first generation of actual like finished products that aren't just chatbots.
There we go. And do you know what? I think that is a great place to wrap it up. This year is the year of the finished product. So, right, is there anything you want to say? Where can people check out your stuff? Where can people reach out to you?
I don't actually know my handles on anything. Funnily enough, after all the social media conversation. But yeah, no, Coso.ai is the startup. My full name is James Flynn. So James Flynn, Coso.ai will get me and all my bits and pieces. I'm very active on LinkedIn in particular, but I have a Twitter that is also business focused. My Instagram is on private because it's for people I try to keep that separate.
It's not for me. Joe, I'll do.
So LinkedIn's the best. Or anyway, also if anyone's kind of listening and they want to chat about AI stuff or social media or marketing, James at Coso.ai is my email address. That might be included in like the show notes if we're doing show notes.
What I'll do is I'll put your LinkedIn handle and the email in the description. So I know we're currently live on YouTube, and this is all going to get published tonight on Spotify. So yeah, if you want to talk to James, you'll be able to find him on LinkedIn or James at Coso.ai. And if you're looking for anything Goosed related, we're Goosed_ie pretty much on every platform, and I mean every goddamn platform that exists. Me, John Harrison, not spelt with a H because everybody always gets that wrong. And yeah, if anybody has questions or things that they'd like us to ask about AI, reach out in the comments, reach out on the site, shout at any of us, and because this is going to be a 10-part series, and the more questions I have to ask some of our really cool guests is going to be amazing. Now, just before I wrap it up, myself and Alex are going to be talking tomorrow, because Samsung Unpacked is actually happening tonight. So we're going to be catching up on everything that Samsung announced. And that'll be going out tomorrow. And then next week, I'm catching up with Emma Meehan of Precision Sports Tech to talk all things sports technology. So we're catching pretty much every pillar that is in the tech industry over the next 2 to 3 weeks. So on that note, see everybody. Thank you, James. It's been an absolute pleasure. And good evening, good luck, good night, goodbye, good morning, depending on whenever the hell you're listening to it.
Perfect. Thanks a million, John. And thanks everyone for listening as well. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Love it.